So I'm a Senior Master Sergeant Donovan Stenson. Did 27 years of active duty service, and I retired with 27 years and 9 days of service in.
And so with my eye on time, I am going to skip to Moody, which is where Don and I began our acquaintance. In this world, in this military world where lifelong friendships form in an instant, and those friends come and go from your life in a matter of months, Don and I have a long history. 7 years. 7 years between me and Don is a long time for the kind of relationship we've had. And I'd like to think that at some point in that time, we moved from strictly professional relationship to that of one based in friendship. 7 years, we've been working together. That's 2 bases. That number I know is right, 2 bases, Don. A relationship forged in the fire and the fury that was Colonel Jeffrey Decker and Lieutenant Colonel Jim Long. As I made my way through these records, I repeatedly saw descriptions like excellent, flawless, superior, and exceptional. And that list goes on and on and on. Also in the records, we see a commitment to the mission that is rare, and repeatedly we see that Don took trust me to be a part of the events here. I'm honored to stand with you. It's been a privilege to serve with you. And I hope this ceremony represents just a fraction of the gratitude that we have for you and that you've brought to us over the years of your distinguished service. Now, as I finish, I'm going to tell one story that just happened in the back. So Don and I are mic'd up for this. You see our friends here filming and taking all of this down for posterity. So certainly Don and I are not used to being mic'd up. And we're not used to people listening to us when we don't think they're listening to us. And my friend right here was all the way on the other side of the room. And Don and I decided to do a shot in the back right before we walked up here. And so he and I are behind the bar back there having a very muted conversation that I think only he and I are a part of. And my friend starts laughing and says, "I can hear you guys." So the good news is, Don, I don't think you can get in trouble for it. The bad news is, I'll let you know how it goes for me.
My dad was active duty Air Force for a good long time, and growing up working on cars with him in the body shop, my twin brother and I constantly heard him talking about how wonderful it was and how it was really rewarding for him to serve his country and the things that he got to go do. And he got me and my brother pretty excited about it, and he always told us that he would be proud of us if we ever wanted to take on something like that. And so we had moved from Arizona to Pennsylvania in our high school year, and both me and my brother, Dwayne, we both delayed enlisted about a year out of graduation. So when we were 17, we went ahead and enlisted in the Air Force a year out. At that point, we were pretty excited, and right after we graduated, I don't think we spent but maybe a month before both of us were gone and off to basic training. Dwayne went to basic training 2 weeks before me, and I left 2 weeks before him because he got in trouble. He got in a fight in basic training. But it's funny because I ran into people, because we're twins, I ran into some guys at one of the places I was at an event, and they all ran up to me and said, Dwayne, what happened to you? What happened to you? I was like, what happened to my brother? And then that's when they told me, oh, he got in a fight, got recycled. And I was all worried because I wasn't able to talk to him or communicate with him in basic training. But my first duty assignment after Lackland Air Force Base basic training was Lowry Air Force Base, for technical school for armament systems technician, and I was on F-16C models. So I did 4 months there and loved Colorado. Colorado's a beautiful place. It was winter time, so we got to do some skiing, traveling, and stuff like that while we were there. And I was one of the last flights to go through there in the early 90s. It would have been about 92, 92, 93 time frame. My first duty assignment was actually Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I was a young airman, didn't know what I was doing, and of course we didn't have telephones back then, and we just had a map. And so I show up to this Myrtle Air Force Base after I bought a car and drove it down from Pennsylvania, and I get to the gate and I hand him my ID card, and guy says, looks through the list and says, Airman Stinson, you've been deferred. You're no longer stationed here. And so I didn't know what that meant, and he said, you are now stationed at Shaw Air Force Base. Well, I was scared because I didn't know where that was, and I looked on the map and found out it was only 2 hours away. So I drove to another destination in South Carolina, and that's where I began my first duty assignment, Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. I was there till 1996, and then 96 I went off and did a remote tour in Korea. After that remote tour in Korea, I got stationed at probably one of my favorite assignments was Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona. And I really liked that base. And I was only there short-lived, maybe 3 years, and I got tagged with another short tour. Ended up going back to Kunsan. After Kunsan, I got stationed in Okinawa, and that's where I met my wife. And we were together probably about a year before we got married. We've been together 17 years now. And she was a young airman, I was a staff sergeant. And we got married there and ended up doing 6 years. So we stayed there for 6 years. It was a really great assignment. The beaches were beautiful. And that's where my son Dylan was born. And my last deployment was very rewarding. I worked on a weapons system for the B-52 for about a 3-year period, developing a CRL, which is a conventional rotary launcher that goes in the belly of the B-52, and it allows the B-52, which is an older aircraft, to carry smart weapons that link up the satellites so they can drop precision weapons, and it allows the pilot to choose from his payload what position, what type of munition he wants to put on what type of target. So essentially what we did is we brought the B-52 into modernization. And the B-52 has been out of the fight for quite some time. And so just very recently, with our upgrades, they wanted to put it back into the fight and test it out. And so my group commander came to me and said, I know you're retiring this year. I was retiring at 26. He said, would you be willing to stay 1 more year, go on this deployment, and take this asset into combat for the first time? And so I did. I did my 14th deployment, and I went downrange with the CRL, and we put 438 bombs on target. 2 days in country, we took out $81 million worth of drug labs in Afghanistan. So that was the first success. You know, I told Mom earlier that lots of sacrifice on their part, lots. And I'm very aware that being away from your children and your grandchildren is a very hard thing. Very hard thing. I'm sure it's been years of having to adapt. And I know that there's been lots of tears shed by my poor mama. And you know, my father passed away 2 years ago, but I will tell you that every success that I've ever accomplished is a direct reflection of the mentorship and leadership that he taught me. Well, I got to go figure out what I'm going to do I got to go figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. I don't know yet. I've been actively applying for positions for government contract work because I have a top secret clearance, and my top secret clearance is something I like to put to work because there's a lot of high paying jobs out there that require it, and it's not easy to get, and so it gives me a step ahead of everybody else that's applying for those positions. Because if you have to get your TS for a company, the company has to pay about $400,000, and they've got to wait up to 2 years for it to be certified before you can even do your job. And so I've been kind of focused and geared on towards those government contracts that are like program management type stuff. I don't know. It's in the Lord's hands.
We go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flames from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flames. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force.
My name is Senior Master Sergeant Donovan Stenson. Just retired after 27 years and 9 days.